You know that feeling when someone you trusted completely just looks you dead in the eye and stabs you in the back. In real life, that kind of betrayal takes years to process. But in WWE, it happens in the middle of a pay-per-view, in front of 80,000 screaming fans, and it gets replayed for the rest of your life. And today, we're counting down the WWE betrayals that didn't just shock fans, they broke them, so buckle up because some of these still hurt. Let's start with one that every wrestling fan remembers exactly where they were when it happened. The Shield, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, three men who were untouchable for 2 years, tearing through the entire WWE roster like a hurricane, enemies on every side. But as long as they had each other, nobody could stop them. And then Seth Rollins picked up a steel chair. June 2014, Raw goes off script. The Shield is standing in the ring together. And out of nowhere, Seth Rollins turns around and starts laying into Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose with chair shots. Triple H walks out applauding. And just like that, the most dominant faction in a generation was dead. And what made this betrayal hit different was the timing. Because the Shield had just started to become fan favorites. The crowd was finally fully behind them. And Rollins, the one fans trusted the most, was the one holding the weapon. Roman Reigns was visibly shaken. Dean Ambrose looked genuinely devastated. And the crowd sat in stunned silence for a good 5 seconds before the boos started raining down. And that's not a wrestling reaction, that's a real reaction because Seth Rollins didn't just betray his brothers on screen, he broke the hearts of millions of fans who believed in the Shield. And that's what makes it the gold standard of WWE betrayals. Now the next one operates differently because it's not a single moment. It's a slow burn betrayal that WWE executed over weeks. Mick Foley as Mankind was Mr. McMahon's hired gun. Vince used him, manipulated him, made him feel valued. Mankind did everything Vince asked, including turning on people he respected. And then when Vince was done with him, he threw him away like he never existed. And what stings about this one is Foley's performance. Because you genuinely felt bad for Mankind, even though he was playing a villain, Vince's cold-blooded corporate cruelty made you root for a guy in a dirty white mask who used a sock as a finishing move. And that's called great storytelling because Vince McMahon as a character has always been WWE's greatest villain precisely because his betrayals feel personal. Then there's Evolution, Triple H, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and the monster they groomed from the ground up, Batista. WWE's version of a dynasty, where the story was simple. Batista was supposed to be Triple H's hand-picked weapon, his muscle, his loyal enforcer. But somewhere along the way, Batista started believing in himself, and the moment he ripped up his Royal Rumble contract and then re-signed it to challenge Triple H instead of John Cena, the crowd absolutely erupted in one of the most electric Raw moments of the mid-2000s, because Triple H had spent months subtly trying to manipulate Batista into staying in his corner, and Batista made him pay for every second of it. And what makes this betrayal so satisfying is the power shift. Triple H was so convinced he had control that he never saw it coming. And Batista's face, that slow, calm smile, told you everything. He'd known for a while and was just waiting for the right moment, because that's not a betrayal, that's a checkmate. This next one hits differently, and not just because of what happened to Owen Hart years later. Bret and Owen Hart were brothers, actually brothers, and WWE built a story around sibling rivalry that felt uncomfortably real. Owen felt overlooked. He felt like he lived in Bret's shadow his entire career, and every time he tried to prove himself, Bret got the credit. And at Survivor Series 1994, it all boiled over. The Hart family had been eliminated from their Survivor Series match, and Owen, furious, blamed Bret. The argument turned physical, and Owen kicked Bret right in the gut and walked off. And what made this one legendary was the authenticity, because Owen Hart was genuinely one of the most talented in-ring performers of his era, and the frustration he channeled into this character felt real. Fans who had brothers or siblings who felt second best connected to this on a level they didn't expect from a wrestling show. And the WrestleMania 10 match they had the following year is still considered one of the greatest matches in WWE history. A direct result of that betrayal, because sometimes the most shocking moments aren't the loudest ones. Sometimes it's just two brothers standing in a ring and one of them finally saying enough. And then there's the modern masterpiece. What WWE pulled off with Sami Zayn over 18 months was cinematic storytelling, and the betrayals went in both directions, which is what made it so layered, because Sami spent months worming his way into the bloodline as a joke. a comedy character nobody took seriously. But slowly and genuinely, Sami Zayn became their honorary use. He earned it. The crowd started to love him for it. And then he had to choose between betraying the bloodline to save his best friend Kevin Owens or staying loyal and letting his friendship die, and he chose Kevin, and the bloodline destroyed him for it. But here's where it gets great, because Sami came back at WrestleMania 39, returning mid-match to even the odds against Roman Reigns. And the crowd reaction was one of the loudest in WrestleMania history. A man who was betrayed became the hero of his own story, and that's not just good wrestling, that's redemption done right. Every single one of these moments has something in common. They weren't just plot twists, they were emotional gut punches that reminded us why we watch professional wrestling in the first place. Because underneath the theatrics, the pyro, and the championships, it's always been about human stories, trust, loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. And WWE, at its absolute best, tells those stories better than almost anything else on television. So drop in the comments which betrayal hit you the hardest. Hit subscribe if you're new here, because we do deep dives like this every single week, and I'll see you in the next one.